indestructible.
One of the things that I've been dying to talk about is the difference between being rich and being wealthy. And the reason why I've been dying to talk about it is because I've heard a lot of people have discussions around the differences of being rich versus being wealthy, and a lot of confusion around that, and rightfully so. So that's what I want to do in this discussion right now, is just have a quick conversation about the difference between being rich and being wealthy. So the definitions of being rich and being wealthy are literally almost the same, but there is one slight difference, and that difference it's an important difference. So first, let's analyze the definition of being rich. The definition of being rich is having a great deal of money and assets. So you look at that definition, it says great deal of, and then money, assets. So whatever currency you're talking about, whether it's the dollar, the euro, the libra, the naira, the whatever, the peso, it's just having a great deal of money and also a great deal of assets. So what are assets? And typically assets, you would talk about precious metals, you would talk about real estate, you would talk about maybe collectible items such as cars or whatever. You can talk about artwork. So those are what individuals are talking about when they say you have a great deal of money and assets. The problem or heartburn that I have with the definition is being an IT person, being a business analyst person, when you're building like IT systems and you're trying to follow the SMART model or the investable model, invest model, the word great deal. So it doesn't have specificity that you're looking for, because it's very subjective. Having a great deal of, for one person, could be $200,000 or $100,000. But for someone else, it could be having $1 million or billion or 500 million. So the term is very subjective. So that's the problem that I have with the definition. But that's the definition of being rich. So now let's look at the definition of being wealthy. The definition of being wealthy is literally the same as the definition of being rich, except again, they add in one word. That is an important word. The definition of being wealthy is having a great deal of money, assets, and resources. So the word resources separates. It's a critical word because it kind of separates the difference between someone who is rich and someone who is being wealthy. So I want to use an example that actually Chris Rock gave, and Chris Rock I think gave a pretty good explanation of the difference of being rich versus being wealthy. I think in a way he may have used the wrong person, or at least it may have been applicable during that time, but we'll talk about it nonetheless. If you go back and revisit Chris Rock's comedy special, I think it came out in 2004, and it was called Never Scared. Actually a very funny comedy special, and I love it. I watch it to this day. He gave the example. He said Shaquille O'Neal is rich, but the person who signs his checks is wealthy. So what he was basically saying is that Shaquille O'Neal is a high-priced employee. You know, he's getting probably paid $5 million a year, $10 million, $20 million a year. He's getting paid a lot of money, way more than what most of us see in a lifetime, right? Or, you know, that we'll never even probably see in a lifetime. He's getting paid that much money, but you think about it. You can get paid $20 million one year and you can be out of the league the next. So you're still a high paid employee. Whereas the person who signed your check, he owns the resource. And what is the resource? The resource would be the basketball team. He owns the team. And that resource brings him the continuous money and or assets. The resources gives him the money and assets. So as the owner, you are continuously signing checks. You own the brand. You know, when people come to the stadiums, you get paid per seat, per ticket that's sold. You have licensing deals, whether if your team is played on television, you get paid off of that. You have residual income coming in. When jerseys get sold, no matter which player on your team jersey it is, that owner's getting a percentage, if not the whole amount of that. And that's the difference between being rich and being wealthy. And you can also look at it from this perspective too. you can look at it from the perspective of a person can be rich just by inheriting something. You can inherit a whole $100 million. You can inherit $10 million or $1 million. But if you don't have the resources, if you don't go out and invest that in the proper assets to bring you in continuous resources or bring you in continuous money and compensation, then those assets will probably go away. They're not going to, you'll run through it for the most part. So that's the difference. A person can be rich just by inheriting land or inheriting money, and you run through that money and it's gone. But a person who is wealthy not only has the money, but they also either have a business, they own an oil well, they own a basketball team, or they own a business, something that is bringing them in income and giving them royalties or sales periodically, whether that be daily, monthly, or weekly, that helps them to sustain their money. And that is the difference. The only thing that I would say in regards to the Chris Rock special is he may have used the wrong person, because again, Shaquille O'Neal, he's rich and he's a high-priced basketball player. He may be an employee, but Shaquille is operating probably in a matrix where, for whatever team he was playing for at the time, yes, he is an employee, but outside of basketball, Shaquille O'Neal has a lot of business ventures going on. I do believe he owns a lot of car washes and so forth. And as you can see, I think he's now has stakes in a lot of fast food, fast casual chains and so forth. So Shaquille O'Neal would be, in my definition, or by my standards, I would also consider him to be wealthy, because I do believe that he has additional resources that are providing him with that wealth. So that's my take on being rich versus being wealthy. Now, I would like to throw in a third component, which would be something that I've coined here at AJ Smith 365, and that would be PASS. And that would be the pathway to achieving self-sustainability. That's what the PASS acronym stands for. And basically the PASS acronym is, it operates outside of a monetary value system. Unlike wealth and being rich, which you really can't quantify, it's very subjective. Being PASS certified, it just checks off a box. It is quantifiable. Number one, if you meet the proper elements of PASS, and I'm going to talk about PASS in a later video, then you can see that one person can actually say, and it applies as a universal model that says, yes, this person is self-sustainable. That's number one. It's quantifiable, but also it shifts the mindset of getting away from currency, whether you're talking about Bitcoin, whether you're talking about a euro, dollar, lira, naira, yen, peso, whatever. It shifts your mind from a currency to talking about, how can I be self-sustainable? What are the things that I need? What are the basic elements of life that I need in order to sustain myself? And from that point, with the PASS model, you're shifting your mindset away from money, from currency, to a mindset of, being self-sustainable and being self-sufficient. And when you do that, you'll see that you can actually live a more fulfilling life if you're operating outside of a currency. So that's my take on being rich versus being wealthy. And I've also thrown in, and I've introduced you to the PASS model, which I'll be talking about in a later video.